Right, good afternoon, everybody. So that's slightly loud. My name's David Dodd, and I'm Consulting Director at Thomsons Online Benefits, and I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes talking about personalisation and how things are transforming in the market now away from traditional reward through to experience. So I'm very conscious that lunch is in 20 minutes, so I'll bring us in on time, and we will win the race to the buffet. So let me just move this. So just in terms of a very quick agenda, so what I thought we'd focus on is that shift from reward to experience. So where's the proof point around what's happening in the market right now? Then we'll look at how you as organisations can start to look at getting personalisation off the ground. So I'm sure many of you are already looking at this. I know having had the round table conversations this morning, there's still a long way to go for many organisations to get that true sort of personalised approach to engagement and to benefits. Then we'll look at why measurement is the key, and then ultimately some case studies as to who's doing it and who's doing it well. So when I first sat down to put this slide deck together, or rather when Debbie and Linda Greaves, our HR director, chased me to say, get this sorted, I'd actually just read Josh Bersin's latest Talent Trends paper, which I'm sure some of you will have read. And ultimately, this was looking at the latest sort of HR tech trends for 2018 and his predictions for what he thought will happen. And one of his bold assertions was that for 2018, wellness is going to explode. And I'm sure, unless you've been sort of living under the stairs for the last 12 months, everyone's already talking about wellness in 2017. But absolutely, that's going to take traction into next year. But one of the great diagrams that he actually put into the paper, I've put up on the board here, and it's almost a bit of a timeline of benefits over the last sort of 20 to 30 years, and that change in a traditional approach to benefits, which, let's face it, was very much 20 or 30 years ago, very defined benefits focused. People received a core amount of benefits and essentially got on with their day job. And what we've seen over that period of time is that evolvement away from defined benefit through to defined contribution into flexible benefits. And now, arguably, we're going into that next step of benefits, which is on-demand benefits. So that's where I very much see the market going. And it's all about performance now. So for individuals, when you think of your millennials, your Generation Zs in the workplace, actually, it's not just about reward and remuneration. It's about the full experience that people have when they come into work. And when you think about the war for talent, it's really important that you as organisations get that right. So for me, in terms of actually improving the performance within the workplace, there's three key things. One is personalisation, and I'm going to come on to some examples of that in a moment. But it's really important to give people that personalised experience and feeling. It's what they expect in their day-to-day lives through Amazon, Uber, Facebook. It's all about the individual rather than segmenting or treating people as a sort of a generic group. Data and analytics, a huge amount of data and analytics is now available, and it's how you can use that to sort of drive the personalised approach. And then the third is a given, really, so technology. Everyone in the room will be using technology in some form, but it's how you can get the best out of that in order to sort of drive that personalised approach. Again, going back to the conversations I had in the round tables earlier on, everyone had the technology, but was it talking to each other? Was it actually giving people the ability to extract data and provide a personalised approach? The general feeling was that no, it wasn't. So a good starting point. It does seem to be survey season, so we've actually just launched our own survey as well. So our Global Employee Benefits Watch, which we released this week, interviewed over 2,000 employees globally to get their views around benefits. And one of the sort of stark pieces of feedback that we got was that benefits for the individual really do matter. So, the question that we asked were do people's benefits meet their needs? And where the benefits program of organisations met their needs, there was a huge uptake in engagement, and that engagement obviously has great impact for employers. So you can see here that 96% of respondents said that where benefits met their needs, they had a positive experience of working in the workplace and with their employer. They were proud to work for their company, and they would recommend it to their friend against those who didn't feel that it met their needs. That, for me, shows that if you're still following the very traditional approach to benefits, that there's a big disconnect and it's not working. And again, going back to that whole war for talent, if you can get that right and give people what they want, then they're more likely to be a valued employee within the business. So that was part one. And don't worry, I'm not going to kill you with stats here. I've only got 3 slides on the on our data. But ultimately, what do employees really want? And this isn't an exhaustive list by any means, but what we've called out are a few things here. So the first one is that 72% of 18 to 25-year-olds want a better work-life balance. Unsurprising, given that's the millennial generation, but only 29% of employers are actually supporting that. So again, a big disconnect between what employers are providing and what is actually being demanded by employees. And when we think about that better work-life balance, it goes back to one of the earlier sessions that we looked at before. The ways in which people want to work is changing. We're doing it ourselves within Thomsons, that rather than working in specific departments and having all of those different reporting lines into different parts of the business, it's actually taking that project-based approach to working. So having numerous people working on projects in order to try and get the best value out of it. We looked at it with the 2 pizza example that I think Neil provided earlier on. Secondly, that 67% of 26 to 35-year-olds are saving to buy a home. Only 11% of benefit programs are saving for this. Very topical given the budget yesterday. But ultimately, again, this fits nicely into financial wellness. But if you can give people the range of solutions in order to actually do what's right for them in terms of things like financial wellness, then it can have a really, really positive impact on engagement for employers. And then finally, employers, based on our research, are 3 times less likely to be meeting the needs of their younger generations. And this again says to me that when we look back at Bursin's curve, that a lot of employers are still taking a traditional approach to benefits. Having flex in place doesn't necessarily set you up well for the new world, which is very much on-demand benefits. So again, some really impactful results that we received there. And then finally, what are the top 3 reasons that employees say that their needs are met? So the first one, understandably, is that they're happy with the amount that their employer spends on their benefits. So yes, the richness of benefits and the choice of benefits which are available to employees. But the key ones for me really are that they receive useful information about their benefits and that they can easily access their benefits. So it's absolutely pointless. And again, I keep going back to the roundtable discussions that we had earlier on. But one of the conversations we had was that this particular organisation had a fantastic benefit offering, but actually getting the message out to individuals was the biggest challenge, and people weren't actually appreciating the value of it. So for me, accessibility and engagement is crucial, and that has to be personalised. It has to be relevant to the individual. Otherwise, the huge spend that you're making on benefits is largely wasted. So again, you can see here what the needs are required for your employees. So for me, how do you get personalisation off the ground? Well, when we speak with clients and we're out talking to the market, what we tend to do is say, right, well, what are you currently doing today? And ultimately, what's the market leader doing? So what are you trying to do in order to bring your benefits program onwards and upwards? So for us, what we look at are, what is the strategy around benefits? So is it purely based on benefits, or are you looking at a needs-based strategy? So you need to look at it more broadly in terms of, what are the objectives for the business? What are the objectives for you? How regularly do you test, the benefits program? And again, one of my biggest bugbears is the amount of time and effort that organisations use focusing on their benefits, but actually they'll do it once in a moment and will maybe leave it for 2 or 3 years, when actually you need to continually review and test what you're doing. Data and analytics will help support that. Outside of that, integrated technology against separate technology. This, again, goes back to the roundtable conversation. So many people have all of the technology in place, but none of it talks to each other. Andrew Drake in the first presentation today talked about integration, and it is really, really important. For us, it's all about having a single portal, but having that talk to different separate technology portals through SSO, through APIs, whatever it may be. But that in itself, having that integrated technology creates a huge amount of data as well for you to be able to formulate your strategies ongoing. The experience, this again was covered off in one of the first sessions. It has to change. When we look at employee experience, you now need to be treating your employees like consumers. It's what they expect when they think about what they're doing in their daily lives. They want that replicated in the workplace. They want their lives made easier. We talk about the overwhelmed employee all the time. How can we make employees' lives easier? And how can we treat them like consumers? So give them ease of access, like I've already talked about, dynamic views, optimize everything for all devices. It's all about giving people the ability to engage with their benefits as consumers. And then finally, data. So the biggest challenge seemed to be this morning that people just simply can't get a grip on their data. They're still manipulating Excel spreadsheets. They've got different platforms. They might have dashboards, but it's not really telling them anything insightful. So how can you become the market leader in a sense and have predictive data? So, have stuff that's instantly accessible. So at any point in time, what you're spending on your benefits, who's using which benefits, which part of the world are people engaging with benefits, and so on. And ultimately allow employees to contribute to that as well. So within the platforms that you may have, allow employees to put their data into it, and that will help you increase that data lake and allow you to formulate your strategy accordingly. So for us, on the right-hand side, becoming that market leader and developing your personalised strategy, you need to review how you currently look at your benefits. You need to look at the technology and make sure that it's as integrated as possible and gives people that consumer-grade experience. And ultimately, look at data and try and use it ongoing through analytics and through various tools that you may have access to. So, looking at the building blocks for making personalisation a success, I mean, again, when we look around the room, I'm sure many of you have got this in place already, but you need to have a defined approach to benefits and understand what it is that you are actually truly trying to achieve with your benefits programs and align that to your business strategy as well. So, you might have a benefits strategy, but how does that tie in with what the business is trying to achieve? Are they trying to become the employer of choice? Are they trying to have double-digit growth? Whatever it may be, benefits needs to align to that. Technology is a given, as I keep saying, that will support and will be the enabler to success when you look at personalisation. And then, as I've already talked about, consumer experience and well-being, everyone's talking about it. Employees are expecting that consumer-grade experience. So you need to look at, what are you currently doing today? And then ultimately, data will feed into that, and that will be the product of all of the other building blocks beneath that. So that in itself can help formulate your strategy when it comes to personalisation. And the key for me is that's all the input, that's what you're putting into it, but what do you get out of it ultimately? Well, for me, it's engagement. So going back to the first set of stats I showed you, if you can get the range of benefits exactly on the money with your employees and make it truly engaging, then they as individuals will be far more loyal to you as an employer and will be more proud to work for your business. It also provides insights, so you get that data and you can ultimately feed that back into your ongoing strategy and then ultimately improved experience as well. So for me, it's a two-way street. You put the effort in to get the strategy right, but ultimately you'll get the outputs from it, and that can continue to build your strategy on an ongoing basis. So that's very much at a very high level how we would look at it when we're looking at trying to make personalisation a success. So just to give you I'm just going to look at the time as well. Okay, I'm doing okay. So just looking at a couple of case studies as well. So I've tried to call out a few different examples of how personalisation can work. And I thought the first case that we'd look at is Intuit. So a client that we've been working with for about 18 months now, and they had a big challenge when we first started working with them, in so much as they're a big global organisation, so almost 9,000 employees. Across the globe, and their biggest challenge was that they had a number of disparate technology platforms. Some of their benefits were being administered on paper, some of it was being administered through standalone technology platforms, and there was no consistent approach. And one of the things that they wanted to do was to try and bring that consistent approach globally, so not just in the UK, but looking at all of their different overseas offices. And one of the things that they introduced was reimbursements. So I'm sure some of you will have heard of this already, but ultimately across the globe looking to provide employees with a pot of money or an allowance each month for them to be able to spend on what was relevant to them, and then ultimately claim that expense back through the benefits portal. So what we did was build the reimbursements manager tool for them. So you can see here, this is just a snapshot of what the technology would look like. But ultimately, they could click onto the reimbursements tool, and then ultimately they would have an allowance, and it would be up to them to either use it or lose it. But most people, as you'll see on the left-hand side in a moment, do use it, and ultimately that individuals could go off and, as I say, select and buy benefits which are relevant to them. So in this example, it was actually well-being, so I've just run a test case, but for me, this shows that this individual was interested in financial well-being, wanted some mortgage advice, so was able to go take that advice themselves, pay for it, and then ultimately could upload the receipt into the system, and then they would receive the money through their pay in the next payroll period. So for us, it's really impactful. I don't think it's just the only answer to personalisation. This is just one in a range of ways that you can start to make that experience more personalised. But you can see on the left-hand side here, the actual take-up has been phenomenal. So this is over the last 12-month period, total claims of just over 11,200, $2.2 million. And what we're able to do through the portal is to actually extract the data and say, right, who's spending money on what benefit, which area of the world is it being spent in. So you can see here, by far and away, the biggest claimant area is the States. But for us, it allows them to get that data and they can start to formulate their strategy as they move forward as well. So that's just one example. The next one is Mundy Farmer, so a client of ours who we've been working with for a good few years now. And when we look back at Josh Burson's diagram, and we look at the traditional approach to benefits, that was very much where Mundy Farmer were. They had a traditional approach to benefits, but because of the type of sector that they were in, so farmer, they had a very sort of entrepreneurial and innovative workforce. It was quite a complex structure as well, so 3,000 employees globally. They wanted to bring a more personalised approach to benefits, so a greater choice, a greater range of benefits, but also greater accessibility and greater levels of engagement around their benefits. So we started from the ground up, so looking at all of their data. So they did some industry benchmarking, we did some employee insights in terms of looking at all of the data selections that they've made over the last few years, and we were able to formulate a strategy with them to actually give them a more relevant range of benefits, but also you can see some of the examples of the comms that were sent out. We were able to offer some really insightful comms to individuals which were relevant to them. So for us, again, the results of this were absolutely phenomenal. They're now an award-winning benefit program, but ultimately we saw increases in engagement of over 10%. They had 99% of people access the platform during the last flex window. And ultimately, we had almost 8,000 benefit selections as well. So for us, it was a case of looking at what they currently did. There was a realization that if they didn't look to transform and start to take a more personalised approach to benefits, then they were going to be stuck in the dark ages, let's say. And they've now taken that forward in a relatively short period of time and have brought it kicking and screaming into the 21st century. So for us, another great success story. And then the final one is actually looking a bit closer to home. So this is something that we at Thomsons have just launched for our employees. And this is looking slightly outside of traditional reward, but looking at that experience that employees are now craving. And this is all about learning and development. So as part of being now part of the wider Mercer family, we have introduced a couple of personalised learning tools, which we introduced in the start of this month. And this allows people to basically access a tool, so single sign-on straight out of our platform into the Harvard Manage Mentor platform, and allows people to actually access different training modules as and when they see fit. So rather than saying to people, right, you need to take a day out of the office or to take a week out of the office to go and learn about specific topics, people can go in on the train, at lunchtime, whatever it may be, in order to actually learn about topics which are really relevant to them. And we've had a great take-up internally. You can see since the 1st of November, 40% of our employees have actually taken it up. Average time spent on it, 62 minutes. So you can start to pull the data out the back of it as well. And I know myself and Linda, our HR director, are starting to use this data to formulate our L&D strategy for 2018 and beyond. So for us, it was a great example of using a relatively simplistic tool, but to be able to really say to employees, we're going to benefit your experience. We know you're time pressed. You haven't got a huge amount of time to focus on L&D, which from employee surveys we knew was a big demand from employees. And this has been really, really fantastic, and we've started to speak to our clients about it. And the beauty of it is it's all linked through that reward portal, so people can go on, choose their benefits, but realise, oh, actually, you know what, I'll do half an hour's training on, I don't know, strategic thinking, or maybe I should have done presentation training. But ultimately, it's another way of giving that personalised approach and helping to sort of benefit the overall experience. So, and that's the final part. just some key takeaways for me, so last couple of minutes, but for me, personalisation is absolutely real and it's happening now. Employees are, they ultimately have that expectation now coming into the workplace that they should be treated like consumers. So it is absolutely happening. You've seen the stats from the Global Employee Benefit Watch, and you've seen, the case studies that we've been through. It's all about optimising experience for individuals. As I say, that expectation is the norm now, and as new demographics come through the business, that expectation is only going to increase. Understandably, tech and data are the enablers to all of this. That is the facilitator for you to be able to use the data to formulate your strategies on an ongoing basis. It's really important to align personalisation to the business strategy, so it doesn't have to just be in the UK, it can be global as well, as evidenced through Intuit, but ultimately look at what your business strategy is, what are you trying to achieve for your people, is it wellness, and then you can ultimately align this to your strategy. And then the key for me as well is start small and start now. If you haven't already started this, it doesn't have to be fully transformational in terms of ripping up the rule book and starting again. You can start small with incremental changes, whether that's engagement, whether that's introducing new benefits. But ultimately, my key message would be start now. And that's a wrap.
Thank you very much. I think we can take, it is lunchtime, but you have got lots of questions. So shall we just take that first question, because I thought that was the most interesting myself as well. Yeah, meaningful personalisation rather than demographic generalisations require gathering some pretty personal information. How do you capture that?
Yeah, for us, within, say, the Darwin portal that we provide, we have a lot of the data anyway from HR, so that is already integrated into the system. But there is a reliance to, I'm conscious of GDPR in the background, to get people to buy into it as well, to put their own information into systems like this. But for us, a lot of the data that we get, we work with employers and we get a lot of the demographic information from HR. So for us, that's helped us shape it. But there is always room to obviously broaden that out, and that's where we ask for employees to try and engage and put more information into the system.
Well, that does lead to the second question, so should we just sneak that one in as well? Does a digitally delivered reward strategy drive employee engagement, or do engaged employees interact with a digitally delivered reward strategy more or better? What comes first, chicken or egg?
Yeah, obviously, those who are already engaged are the ones that tend to, they're gold dust, and we they're almost a given. But it's for me, having a personalised engagement strategy, the key is targeting those people who aren't engaged in the first place. And if you can give them that personalised experience that they're used to, on a daily basis, then that for us starts to draw them. It's almost like a moth to a flame. They start to become interested in it, and then it's all about, once you've got them on the hook, is actually keeping them engaged on a regular basis.
So it's making it easier for them to engage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much.